Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. I'd like to ask the family to come sit up front in the first row here. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for being with us today to remember our dear, wonderful friend Melanie. Be seated, please. So before we begin, in lieu of a traditional Shiva service, which we can't really do now, the family has asked that friends and loved ones come over, visit tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon, between 3 and 6 o'clock. So if you're planning to come and visit Barry and Jeffrey and Alec and all the loved ones, give a call first. Give a call before you come over to their house. Please stay with us after the service, and we'll visit here in Beit Tikva's sanctuary. And we will remember Melanie as well on Shabbat morning when we have a traditional Sabbath morning service and a bar mitzvah service on this Saturday morning. So we begin a memorial service, as we always do, with the tearing of what's called a kriya. We symbolically remind ourselves that our hearts are broken and we tear a piece of our garment. So I'm going to do that with Alec and Jeffrey and Barry.
Blessed are you, O God,
The righteous judge.
the righteous judge. Amen.
Blessed are you, O God. Blessed are you, O God, the righteous judge.
Blessed are you, O God, the righteous judge.
Blessed are you, O God.
Blessed are you, O God,
the righteous judge.
the righteous judge.
I know that we have many loved ones and dear friends and family and those who love the Hornsteins for years and years who are watching us on the computer, and I hope you can all hear clearly and will be with us and share the Psalms and the prayers together. In your prayer booklet, we always begin a memorial service with Psalms, and I'm going to read Psalm 139 first. O Lord, you have examined me and know me. When I sit down or stand up, you know it. You discern my thoughts from afar. You observe my walking and reclining and are familiar with all my ways. There is not a word on my tongue that you, O Lord, know it well. You hedge me before and behind. You lay your hand upon me. It is beyond my knowledge. It is a mystery. I cannot fathom it. Where can I escape from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I descend to Sheol, you are there too. If I take wing with the dawn to come to rest on the western horizon, even there your hand will be guiding me, your right hand will be holding me fast. If I say, surely darkness will conceal me, night will provide me with cover, darkness is not too dark for you. Night is as light as day. Darkness and light are the same. It was you who created my conscience. You fashioned me in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am awesomely, wondrously made. Your work is wonderful. I know it very well. My frame was not concealed from you when I was shaped in a hidden place, knit together in the recesses of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed limbs. They were all recorded in your book. In due time they were formed to the very last one of them. How weighty are your thoughts? They seem to me, O God, how great their number. I count them. They exceed the grains of sand. I end, but I am still with you. Please turn the page and we'll read Psalm 23 together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me on the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Your rod and your staff do comfort me. You set a table before me in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runneth over. You restoreth my soul. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 121 is called Esai Nai. We lift our eyes to the mountains, to the beautiful mountains here in the Santa Fe Basin, and ask God for understanding, comfort, and discernment on this very sad day. I lift mine eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. Behold, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. Let's read this passage together from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to reap and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. So I would like to share a few thoughts with you about Melanie, beloved mother and wife and aunt, sister, friend, devoted friend to so many people around this country, and lover of Israel, lover of our congregation and of everything that was Chicago and is Chicago, her birthplace. Let me begin with a story from the Bible, since we're beginning the reading of the Torah again this Shabbat with Bereshit, with the opening words of Genesis. When Abraham lost his beloved wife Sarah, the Bible says in one very simple sentence, quote, Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. It's interesting the way the word for weeping is written in the Torah scroll. It has what's called a minuscule letter in the middle of that verb, weeping, to weep for her. And that's an unusual thing. It's what's called a rabbinic emendation. There are certain letters in the Torah that are either large or miniature. And in this case, for weeping, it was a miniature. So the rabbis say, why is this? Because this has been written like so for the last 2,000 years. And they said that it means, the reason for the, so to speak, miniature weeping is that Abraham actually did not shed very many tears for his dear wife. How could he not shed tears when he was 120 some years old and she was 90 plus? And the sages comment that she had left behind such an incredible life of beauty, of ethical purity, of strength. She had bequeathed so much of a harvest of goodness and love and compassion to her family that Abraham's grief was softened by his gratitude for everything that she had given to him. And in that way, I think of Melanie in the same manner. Because Melanie gave to you, Barry, 63 plus years of extraordinary beauty, vitality, laughter, strength, uplifting, sharing, doing everything together, sharing everything together. She was the strength of your family. She was your matriarch. And she was also your very dearest confidant and friend. And like Sarah in the Bible, she built you a house, or helped you build a house of love, of trust, of mutual understanding. It was, in fact, a miniature sanctuary. I remember when Casey and I were able to come over for one of those wonderful dinner parties, more than one dinner party. The table was perfectly set, elegantly set. Every glass and every piece of silverware was in the right place. I was always worried about which fork to take first. And then Melanie made lamb for the main course, which was fantastic. I couldn't get enough after 2 portions. But she was not only a great hostess and so much charm and so much hospitality, but she just radiated that much warmth, that much joie de vivre. There was so much kindness and goodness coming from her heart that when you were in your house, we felt like we were an extended part of your family. It's kind of a divine radiance. When people have that strength, when they have that luminous presence, when they have that brilliance of character, it's, to me, a reflection of the divine. And I believe that Melanie was a very spiritual person in a very private way. She loved her congregation growing up in Chicago. She told me that the rabbi, famous Rabbi Siskin, he was, nobody really talked to Rabbi there. They talked to the board of members because the rabbi was next to God and nobody could talk to God. But she had a relationship with that senior rabbi, with that famous rabbi for many years because he was in fact a dear friend of Melanie's father. So there was a real connection. I hope that you will always cherish the memories that she gave you. Not only that, I hope that all of us in this room and everyone who's watching on your computers will remember the excellence of her spirit, the excellence of Melanie's inner self. Because if we could emulate that self, if we could emulate all the kindness and givingness and compassion, also the intellect, the perspicacious intellect that she possessed in her love of opera, her love of symphony, her love of short stories, her love of literature. If we could all sort of gather some of those qualities and let them be kindled within our own hearts, you and I would be better people. We would be kinder people, we would be more educated, we would love the arts as she did, and most of all, we would love our families. Because the strength of your family is a result of your mother's giving you so much strength. So may her life, all of her years, be a blessing to us. May we, as I say, strive to be more like Melanie, and may we take the goodness of her life into our hearts and make it our own. These are words from Nancy Hellman, one of Melanie's many very dear friends. Melanie was much more than a dear friend. She had such a strong impact on all of our lives. Her kindness, her compassion taught us to be better people, much better humans. She had that rare gift of passion for all people, no matter who they were or where they came from. I could never have any higher honor than to be considered one of her best friends. And knowing the gift of always giving from her heart made all of these years so beautiful and meaningful. I cherish every moment that I could be part of her great life, and she had just that, a great existence with Barry and her Jeffrey and Alec. You all were so very much loved by her, as her very being was a reflection of all the good surrounding you. Every act of kindness was a part of her everyday life. Yes, she was an extraordinary human being. It is indeed our loss, but at the same time, a treasured gain in our lives of knowing and loving Melanie. Our love for her will remain forever. So I'd like to ask Jeffrey to come up, please, and share some words with us.
Well, thank you all for coming out, and hello to everybody watching and listening at home. I understand how difficult this was due to what's going on in the world right now, so thank you all. I've been the last few days knowing that this was coming, thinking if I should write something, if I should recite something, and I've gone back and forth, started many times to write something, and then I just decided that I was gonna come up here and just see what came out. My mom was a very kind person, and a patient person. I struggled for many years kind of to find my way. I guess we all always are looking for our way and get off the beaten path sometime. But my mother always stuck with me, and like a loving mother would. But beyond that, what I really admired about my mother, and I attempt to emulate, and I will do my best to carry on, was just how kind my mother was to all sorts of people, family members and friends, loved ones, of course, but my mother just exuded kindness and treated pretty much everyone who crossed her path with respect, whether it was somebody at a store, a waitress, a person on the sidewalk. My mother just always had a smile and a good word for everybody. And I aspire to do that in my own life. And as I go on without my mother, when I'm lost trying to find my way, I will reflect back on her and find the strength to do what I know is right, and what I know is right because I learned it from my mother. I really don't have much to add now. I'm sure as the days go on, all of you here and all of our dear friends and loved ones who are watching at home, we will have a lot of time to reflect, share stories and wonderful memories. I know that we all were touched by my mother, and that as the days go on, we will all carry on her legacy of kindness and compassion and patience. So thank you very much. I have my dear aunt and my mother's dear sister Diane, who is not able to be here in person today. She sent me something that she would like for me to read, which I will read now. So this is from my mother's little sister, Diane. My courageous and most loving sister held high standards and passed them on to her family. We were so fortunate to have a beautiful, deep, and most pleasurable relationship. As close as we were, at times she kept her own counsel. Melanie and I lived through the deaths of beloved family and friends. We grieved together, and now it seems impossible that she is the one this time. She is joining the loved ones in our lives who are no longer on this earth. She stood as my guiding light. Perhaps I can take on some of her qualities, and I echo that myself. She felt great gratitude to those who made special efforts for her family, the community, the world. We are left with an aching void in our hearts, but will cherish the memories she has left behind. And to go to the first person from my dear aunt, who I love so much. I love you, my dear, larger-than-life, joyous Melanie. This is how I must remember you, my soulmate, loved by so many. Finally, I received basically the same message that the rabbi read from Melanie's dear friend, all of our dear friend Nancy, and I had printed out the email which she sent to me the other day as well, because it really touched me, and it kind of captured the essence of my mother and how important her friends were to her. So I'm gonna kind of read it again, if you don't mind. This was from Nancy Kalman, and on behalf of Bob as well. Melanie was much more than our dear friend. Her compassion and kindness taught us to be better, much better humans. She had the rare gift of passion for all people, no matter where they came from. I could never have any higher honor than to be considered one of her best friends. Knowing her amazing giving of her heart made these years so beautiful. I cherish every moment that I could be part of her life. And she had a great life with all of you and all of you at home in her heart, as you were so loved by her. It indeed is our loss, but at the same time, a treasured gain in our lives of knowing and loving Melanie. We will love her forever. And yes, I will love you too forever, Mom. Dear Mother, I love you. Thank you.
like to invite Alec to come up and share some words with us.
Thank you, everybody who's with us. I also struggled with writing something, and I'm gonna try not to turn on the waterworks here as my mother often would. So, yeah. So I made a kind of an outline of a few things. My mother's always been my guide. I just simply think she's the best person I've probably ever met. Give me a second here. So I think she was my greatest teacher. She taught me about the arts, music, the environment, outdoors, and how to be a good family member, how to be respectful, have good manners. My mother was very sick when she was giving birth to me. She was in the hospital for 3 months. So I feel like just getting the gift of life from her was amazing. Know what she went through. Early in childhood, I was asthmatic, a lot of allergies, a lot of sickness, and a lot of nights she stayed up with me all night. And so kind of my early life, she was the ultimate mother. And then the education that was provided, I know that our high school in New Trier was always very important to her. And my brother and I went on to also graduate from there. As the rabbi mentioned, Chicago was always in my mother's heart, and she will always be a Chicagoan. But she'll also always be a New Mexican. She loved it out here. She learned to love the environment with her. Kind of a kudos to her book group. She made many friends through her book group and through the arts, and just through, as my brother said, my mother found it very easy to make friends with anybody, all walks of life. It didn't matter who it was or their stature, anybody could be her best friend. So, and then of course she has made some friends that really are her best friends, and more than I could ever imagine. I kind of remarked if I could have half of the close friends over my lifetime, I've done very well. Finally, I developed a love and an appreciation for the whole world. My mother and my father both had traveled the world. And luckily, I was given the opportunity to do a lot of that myself when I was younger. So kind of, she gave me the big picture, as well as all the little things. And I hope my love of travel, museums, art, music, all that, the outdoors. Finally, I think it was important to my mother to be Jewish, to be a part of a congregation, both when she was a child in Chicago, where we attended North Shore Congregation Israel, where both my brother and again, I also went, got some education and made a lot of great friends. And I really, standing here, I've been coming to New Mexico since the congregation here didn't have a building, and I know that my mother was instrumental in helping to build the place we're standing in right now, so it's quite important that we're honoring her here. And I think also, as my brother touched on, just so many friends, of all ages, all people, and kindness to everybody. And then finally, it was fast. It was not a great last month here. I just have to acknowledge that I only got through it with the help of friends, and especially my brother, my cousin, and my father, and also my brother's wife, Alejandra. So I hope anybody out there will just also understand that one thing Melanie always had was the most positive attitude. She always looked to the future. So it's going to be hard to go on without her, but honoring her memory by enjoying the outdoors, enjoying the arts, the planet we live on, be kind to people, be kind to animals. Okay, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
So if you'll turn in your prayer booklets with me to the page which begins with El Malei Rachamim, the traditional prayer of compassion in our Jewish tradition. I'm going to read the first part in English, and then we'll all read together from the middle of the page, and I'll ask you to all stand as I recite it in Hebrew. Unto your care we entrust the spirit of Melanie Hornstein, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, God, are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our lives, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort, the sorrow-laden for consolation. O God, we see life as through windows that open onto eternity. We see that love endures and the soul endures, as you, our God, endure forever. Let's read together. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and glory. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Melanie Hornstein, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. Let us say Amen. Please rise for the Hebrew. El Malei Rachamim Shochen B'Meromim Amatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina Lenishmat Melanie Hornstein Shahalcha L'Olama Ba'al HaRachamim Yitzor B'Yitzor HaChaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachlata V'Tanuch B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of Melanie, as she has departed from our world. Lord of mercy, bring her into your presence. Let her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Be thou her possession, may she always repose in peace. Let's be seated. So before we come to the closing prayers, I want to share with you this poem. It's not in the booklet, but some of you may recognize Mary Oliver, one of the great American authors and poets of this past century. This is a poem by Mary Oliver called When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from her purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like a measles, I want to step through the door of life full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a sisterhood and a brotherhood. I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. In each name a comfortable music in my mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. In each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. And when it's all over, I want to say about my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. So if you'll turn with me to the last 2 pages of our prayers, and we'll read this meditation on the Kaddish, and then I'll ask all of us to stand and we'll recite the words of the Kaddish together in the Aramaic in the inside cover. And by the way, this, what's called the Mourner's Kaddish, it's actually not a prayer of mourning, it's a prayer of thanks. It's a prayer of affirming the reality of life, the gifts of life, the understanding of the transcendence of that which is beyond us, and basically saying thank you for each life that we have experienced. So let's read together on the left-hand side of the page. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking in the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your simchas and multiplying your mitzvot. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not in your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Please rise and we'll recite the Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabba, v'yamad yivarach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala b'zman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam olmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, damiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. O source of peace, you who make peace for us from the high heavens, bring us peace now into our hearts, upon all of our shoulders, here, everywhere, across this country. Bring peace to our loved ones, all of the house of Israel, all good peoples throughout the world. We say together, amen. Amen. Let's all be seated, please. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is our journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage from birth to death, to life everlasting and memories everlasting. Before we conclude the service, as I was thinking, reflecting on the incredible words from Jeffrey and from Alec. I want to share one moment last week when Melanie was still speaking and coherent and trying very, very diligently to hold on and talk to each one of us. I was visiting and I said, well, would you like me to say some prayers for you? And you know what a great smile she has. So she kind of smiled and she looked at me and said, in English. So I recited the appropriate prayers, and then I was saying goodbye and so forth, and I'm about to leave the room, and she kind of opens her eyes really wide and looks at me and says, what about a kiss? I need a kiss. And I was a little bit nonplussed, but I thought, of course, a kiss is a blessing. And she wanted a blessing. And it was my duty and my forgetfulness to be suddenly at that moment not realizing that she deserved that blessing because she'd given every one of us so many blessings. So I leaned over very gently. I said, I got this mask on. Do you mind? And she just kind of, crinkled up her eyes, and I kissed her with the mask on. And that was a way of saying au revoir and be strong. And we're all with you. We all love you. But I'll never forget that because when she said, a kiss? I thought, I'm forgetting something. That to be the rabbi, you have to tune in to many different levels of understanding. And Melanie was so tuned in, so sensitive, so kind and warm, that she wanted the same warmth from all of us. And she gave it to all of us. May her memory always be a blessing to everyone here and to everyone across the country, all of her loved ones and sister and brother and everyone in the family who is watching with us today. Shalom. Thank you for being with us.